A happy Wednesday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Another episode of Drank and Champagne. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Andrew Champagne. Andrew, last minute adjustment. I figured maybe people didn't want to just watch us randomly look around while the theme song played, so
How
I
dare they?
disabled it.
How dare they not want that? How dare they not want that? Forget what the people want. Let's just shove what we want straight down their throats. That'll work, right?
I'll be honest. What really kind of turned me off of it is you did like the, um, like when wrestlers are in the middle of the ring and something's going on, and all of a sudden somebody else's theme music plays, and they act like surprised, like they don't know what's coming. You were giving that look every time we started this, like you were like looking around and stuff, and I was like, I think he's liking this a little too much. Let's
Yes. How dare Andrew have fun? A philosophy you and my fiance share an unbelievable similarity with.
yeah. I haven't met your fiance, but I love her already.
It's most people do. Yes.
But Andrew, how you been, man?
I've been pretty good. I spent most of the past week in sunny Colorado. Had a phenomenal vacation. My fiance and I packed a lot into 5 days. I believe we put somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 miles in a rental car over the course of 5 days.
Wow.
Yeah, we did a lot. First full day there, we wound up taking a road trip up into Wyoming, spent some time in Cheyenne and Laramie, went to a whole bunch of museums up there, stopped in Fort Collins on the way back. That's a really cool college town. Went to a bunch of different places near Denver, about half hour out. We spent some time in Boulder, which is where the University of Colorado is. That's a great college town, by the way. Shout out to my friend, FanDuel TV anchor Mike Joyce, who recommended a spot where he worked for several years during his undergraduate years. I took a picture of that particular watering hole on our way by, and I am going to give a little bit of an insight into just how that conversation went, because he gave us this place and said, "Oh, go down there and have a margarita after you're done with dinner." Well, we went down there, and to say this place is a dive would be charitable to dives.
Oh man.
I took a picture, and my fiance looks around. We didn't leave the car, and my fiance looks and goes, "This place is a dump." Well, Mike Joyce gets back to me after I relayed that message and says, "Tell her it has character." Character.
Okay. That's
So
funny.
we stopped by there, but there are a bunch of really cool places in Boulder. I wish we had more time to be able to explore them. Denver is a very cool place. I like that city a lot. I find myself back there about once every 5 years or so. If they would remember to turn the heat on between October and March, it would be a very, very tempting place to live. Alas, shoveling snow is against my religion after I spent the first 23 years of my life in upstate New York. I'm pretty much done with that. So having said that, though, great place to go on a vacation for a couple of days. Went to Coors Field for the first time. That's a really cool ballpark. If you've been to Citi Field, where the Mets play, there are a lot of similarities. There's not a bad seat in the house per se. It's just a matter of what you feel comfortable paying for. A lot of the best food options are out in the outfield. You've got to walk a little ways to get there, but there are some really, really cool things to explore. If you've got the money and you're looking for a vacation place that's a little off the beaten path in the summer, can't recommend Denver highly enough. There's a lot to do.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've never been to Colorado. It's on my list of places to go. Obviously, our good friend Caleb, my co-host on the normal regular streams, he is I think moving out to Denver in the next couple months. So looking forward to planning a trip out to see his new place. Unfortunately, he lives just outside of New Orleans, and that is also on my list of places to go, and my wife's as well. She loves anything that is haunted. So New Orleans is right up her alley. Andrew, we've talked a little bit about our trip next summer coming out for your wedding, and She has was it the Winchester
The
Mansion?
Winchester Mystery House. You're going to love it.
It is that she's like that is something that we need to do
Oh,
before we
that's
leave.
great. That's
So
fantastic. I'm going to tell my fiance that, and she's going to be really, really happy to hear that.
yeah, she is yeah, she is stoked about that.
Yeah.
And then obviously gonna go check out other parts of California. And I
Alameda
do
County Fair.
well, I did warn her about that. I think I talked about it last week or 2 weeks
Yep.
ago, because she goes, "What did you warn me about?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "You said something that you warned me about something." Like, so she obviously was overhearing us record, and I was like, "Oh, I warned you that we're going to a racetrack the day after this wedding." She's like, "Oh, yeah, you did." So, um, but yeah, looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, Colorado also a place on my list of places to go. But yeah, what else? I know we got you had a bit of, you got skunked a little bit on Sunday. It sounded like at
Ran well
Saratoga.
second all day long. It's one of those days where, as a handicapper, you'd almost prefer to be dead wrong than run second as many times as I did. Having said that, though, Alicia and I were at Rocky Mountain National Park on Sunday. And there's worse places to have a bad day at the track
Hmm.
than when you're walking around a trail, you're seeing gigantic elk, you're taking pictures of these beautiful lakes and going up and down all of these trails. I usually go to the gym on Tuesdays, but this was my first full day back. My body told me I needed a rest. So after work, I dove into EA Sports College Football 25 on my brand new Xbox Series S.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game once you go through the process of realigning the athletic conferences to what they should be, because, global warming has apparently gotten so bad here in the real world that Cal and Stanford, about an hour from where I'm recording this, are now on the Atlantic coast. Yeah. By the way, if you're looking for a fun read, go on ESPN.com. They had a piece where they talked about the logistics of Cal and Stanford football having to play in the Atlantic Coast Conference against teams like Clemson and Duke and Syracuse and all that. And everyone's acting like everything makes sense. Josh, my biggest sports bet of this upcoming year is going to be the season long under in wins for both Stanford and Cal. Stanford, one time this year in September, has 2 East Coast games in 8 days. They can't stay on the East Coast because the first week of classes is between both of those games. They are so screwed.
You know, football aside, football teams, especially the big programs, they have the means for this kind of travel to fly back and forth, right? What about the women's soccer team?
Olympic sports are in big, big trouble. The only solution that I can bring up rationally that conferences are going to have to deal with is coming up with conferences for non revenue sports. Now, doing that means you might have to deal with some Title IX stuff. That's going to get tricky. That's going to be very, very tough. But the alternative is you're going to wind up cutting sports. And nobody wants that. But I feel very badly for a lot of the people out here, say on the West Coast. Say you're in the Bay Area, you've gotten D1 offers from all over the country, but you stay home and play for Stanford or Cal because you want to play near where, your area is. One of the solutions that got brought up as a potential workaround for this was for Stanford and Cal to play their home games in Texas. So your big solution to making this work is robbing kids of their home games? Just
Yeah.
no. There is no way any of this was a good idea. Working our way back to certain things, though, God, it's great having a college football video game
Hmm.
after more than 10 years. It's not a perfect game. There's some stuff that needs to get worked out in a couple of patches, but it's very, very, very good.
Yeah, I have it on PlayStation 5, and I've been playing a bit. I've played a bit against my buddy online. I've been having a really really good time with it. I, I'll I haven't followed the realignment stuff as much as I guess I thought I had, because when I played as University of Illinois and I saw that the Big Ten was now like 18 or 20 teams or something
Yep.
like that. Yeah, I was not ready for that. It college sports, honestly, the I follow basketball during basically from conference championship season on. So that like the week before the
Yep.
tournament and on. That's it. I bet on it. I've actually done very well betting on college basketball. But I just it's just not something I follow, and college football probably even less at this point. And yeah, it was a shock to see where all these teams kind of ended up. But yeah, when I saw all that, I think hey, the football teams have the money, but the track team, you know, the badminton, like tennis, like how are all these sports gonna survive? But yeah, they're gonna have to do something. But
Yeah.
obviously, this is not a sports podcast or a college football
Though what I will
podcast.
say is, if you want a sports or a college football podcast, go on down below on YouTube and comment. Make your voices heard. And if you would like certain content, we will do whatever we can as your loyal content providers here on the Wrong Lead to be able to satisfy your cravings for whatever you're into. But for now, this is a horse racing podcast. Sir, this is a Wendy's. And this week, reminder, we are recording this on Tuesday, July 23rd. We had a couple of different options and a couple of different directions we could have gone. Josh, ever the loyal Illini, decided to take a look at the late pick 4 at Hawthorne, which has a carryover. So initially, I don't want to say grumpy about it, but I'm going, we got Saratoga, we got Delmar, we're looking at Hawthorne. I'm getting a little overloaded here. Then I looked at the early pick 5 at Saratoga on Thursday, and oh boy, this sequence looks like Royal Ascot by comparison. Josh, good call on this. This is a sequence that should have a pretty big pool. There are a couple of favorites that I am going against in this sequence on a $48 ticket. I think a couple of these races are good betting races too, because there are logical horses in here that aren't going to be prohibitively short prices. And I think there's at least one prohibitively short price that you can play against.
Yeah, and I'm just pulling up the takeout chart just so I can get my yeah, the pick 4 and the pick 5 I believe are 17% takeout, so not necessarily the 15% or lower that we're kind of used to seeing. However, there is about an 8,000. It's like somewhere between $8,000 and $9,000 carryover in both pools, both the pick 4 and the pick 5. So that's going to lower your takeout, I think, even more, and I think it's going to make this I think a really really nice bet. Yeah, I think in handicapping Hawthorne, what at least my approach to it is, in every sequence there are always going to be a lot of short price favorites. The field size isn't the greatest. The turf races actually generally draw a pretty good field, and we got a little bit of rain yesterday and today. Nothing crazy. And I think tomorrow we might have a little bit of rain scheduled. My guess is we're going to be on the turf, and that makes this sequence really, really interesting. Obviously, we're recording this Tuesday night, so just prepare for scratches and the like. But we are going to start with a nice turf race here. We got a 5 furlong sprint, a allowance race here for fillies and mares 3-year-olds and up, which have never blah 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 blah. Right? We got all those fun conditions, and we got 7 horses here with an MTO, the 8 to Achua here, and your favorite is going to be the 1, Dorothy Crowfoot. 9 to 5 for Larry Ravelli and Jareth Loveberry. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that I have nothing written next to the number 1. And I'm going to start the sequence off by trying to get around this short price Larry Ravelli horse. And at least my thinking in getting around this favorite is this horse does have a try on the turf. And, it was an optional claimer. It wasn't in for a tag and ran fine. But I think there's a couple in this race that have run much better and are going to be a much longer price than this Larry Ravelli horse, Dorothy Crowfoot, the number one. Just outside, I think the two Rieta is very interesting in this spot because first time out broke her maiden as a 2 year old going 5.5 here at Hawthorne on the turf. And debuted their 3 year old season at Turfway Park, and we'll say that is a turf like surface in the synthetic, right? These Midwestern turf horses, if they don't ship down to fairgrounds, for the most part they run at Turfway Park, and I think ran a really really nice race there at a huge price. Came back here to run in two state bred dirt races, and I look at that pedigree, and especially on top. I mean, you see Dynaform Temple City, who's by Dynaformer. I mean, you just think that this horse wants to get on the turf. So I think going back to the turf race, I think has some tactical speed. I don't know if necessarily needs to get on the lead, but has gotten the lead 2 out of its 4 starts. And I thought that this was a really interesting price and an interesting alternative to the one at a 6-1 morning line, which I think is more than fair. And then one of the shorter prices I took is the 5, Beauty of the Nile. Another horse that has shown speed and has won 2 races in a row here on the turf, going 5 furlongs, one at Indiana Grand, another one at Belterra, now coming here to Hawthorne. Relatively similar levels, we'll say, of track. I think that they've kind of been here, right? Obviously, one that they tried to run at Keeneland, so they thought pretty highly of this horse, but as soon as they put this horse on the turf, has won 2 straight. They're coming here for 3 in a row. Once again, this does look like a pretty turfy pedigree here with Pioneer of the Nile, yeah, I think that last race perfectly fits in here. Horse threw a bullet last time out working. So I think this is the horse that's coming in here cranked, and it's 9-2 on the morning line, and is I think a much better alternative than the 9-5 you're going to get on the one horse. And then lastly, I also use the 6 Classic Performer here. I think this is kind of, what's the word we're looking for? This is kind of like the measuring stick, I think, for this race. Right, I think you look at this horse. This is a horse that's been very consistent on the turf. Is got has been in the money 4 times out of 6 going this distance on the turf, or this at least this turf sprint distance. And yeah, has got some nice wins at Fairgrounds, at Laurel, at Monmouth. So I think that this horse fits in here very well. I don't know what they were doing with this horse. They put it on the dirt. Obviously won a race on the dirt, and then they kept on sprinting, and then they went long on the dirt. And now they're coming back off the layoff, coming back to what I think this horse wants to do, which is sprint on the turf. So I expect a little bit of improvement here, and I think if this horse improves a little bit on that fairgrounds race from the beginning of the year, I think this horse obviously fits in here. So I got 3 horses here. I'm going to be using the 2, I'm going to be using the 5, and I'm going to be using the 6. Andrew, where did you land?
Well, we agree on one of these horses, and that's the 5 Beauty of the Nile, who I do think is a slight overlay at the 9-2 morning line price. The 2 misfires earlier on in the career turned out to be pretty explainable. She's a turf horse. They ran her at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. I almost said Indiana Grand. Rachel McLaughlin could have potentially fined me for that, but nope, not happening. Wound up winning at Horseshoe, Indianapolis, then took a step up into Allowance Company, looked very impressive breaking from a far outside post, and it turned out that wasn't an issue. Horse went wire to wire. I think there's every chance that this one of the horses in this field has potential to improve. The more I looked at this race, though, I couldn't leave Dorothy Crowfoot off of the ticket solely because This seems like the only horse that's capable of gaining any ground late in a race that has a lot of pace attached to it. I don't like the price. I think this horse is going to be very, very short. If I was playing a grid system, Beauty of the Nile would be my lone A. I guess you could potentially call Dorothy Crowfoot a defensive B. Josh, there's the button right there. Thank you. I appreciate that. Having said that, Dorothy Crowfoot seems like the one horse that could be gaining ground late in a race with a lot of, as our friend Chase could potentially call it, inexpensive velocity attached to it. So I'm using the one as well. But Beauty of the Nile, I think we agree, is the value play in this particular spot. For the sake of a caveman ticket, I'll go 1 and 5 here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, optics isn't like super helpful here because you have so many horses that haven't run on on the surface of distance plot, right? You have three that show up on here. Of those, I think Classic Performer, obviously, I think plots out the best. And like I said, the one doesn't look awful on the standard plot. Um, I think of the horses on the standard plot I think the two just was kind of a standout for me. And I thought that the two and the six were probably my strongest opinions in here, but the five coming off those back to back wins, coming in with the good form, I thought was going to be tough to leave off the ticket. So yeah, let's move on to the next race, Andrew. We have a claimer, $5,000 claimer, which apparently Saratoga is going to start carting pretty soon. The way that they're going, we got 6 furlongs here on the dirt. Sorry, was that too Chad Brown of me?
A little bit, just a little bit.
But we're going 6 furlongs here on the dirt, and we have a field of 7. And you know, when I took a look at this really quick, and obviously I have the Brisnet PPs up right now, and this is something that Chase actually taught me a little bit. You got 1E, right? You got an EP horse here, but you see he's an EP5. If you see a lone E that has got 2 points or more higher than anybody else in that field, oh baby, we might have a lone speed situation here. And so Lucy Jane, I have as an A in this spot, and I believe I have another horse. Yeah, I am using another horse in here, but Lucy Jane is my top pick in this race. And you know, if you kind of cross the line through the last race, obviously it was a race in the slop, and I mean, frankly, you look at that pedigree, and you would have thought that this horse would have relished the slop, but obviously did not like it. Ran its basically its worst race since leaving Luis Mendez's barn there, and you know, you look at the tracks that this horse has been running at. Churchill, Keeneland, Churchill, obviously breaking its maiden at Churchill in a $15,000 maiden claimer. And they got very aggressive with this horse after winning that maiden claimer. Immediately running this in claimer 30,000s, non-winners of 2, back to back, and the horse I think basically told you this is not a $30,000 claimer, and this horse is just dropping off the cliff here. And I don't necessarily think that it's a complete dump. I think that they're just realizing, hey, this horse broke its maiden going for in a tag for 15,000. This horse should be running for between $5,000 and $7,500, right? This is not a $30,000 claimer. So I think that they're just dropping this horse in the right class. This is a horse I think that's got the most speed out of anybody in this race, and yeah, this is going to be my top pick here. I am also going to use the 5, Lady Helena here, and this is a horse that broke its maiden on the dirt or on the turf, and ran 4 times for Sherry DeVoe there on the turf. Switched barns over to Larry Ravelli. Once again, ran on the turf, and finally he's like, you know what? Let's get this horse going on the dirt. Second start with Larry Ravelli, he wins at 45%. The cutback move going from a route to sprint for Larry Ravelli, he wins at 34%. Those are gaudy numbers even for Larry Ravelli, who normally wins at like 30% here at this Hawthorne meet. So, yeah, I just think that this is he knows what he has here. He thinks that this is a dirt horse. He is cutting this one back, and that's generally what he does best, right? Is sprints, with the exception of two fills. He's really been known for his turf sprinters and his dirt sprinters, not necessarily the horses going 2 turns. So I thought he was going to be or she was going to be tough to leave off a ticket here in this spot. So those are the two horses I'm going to use. I'm going to use the 5 and I'm going to use the 7. Andrew, where do you land?
Well, once again, we have one horse in common. Number 7, Lucy Jane, has one of Chase's favorite angles. It also has one of mine. I'm referring to the toss 2 play. Josh, I think you can draw lines through each of the last 2 outings. The race on April 8th, 2023 at Keeneland, then there was a layoff. So safe to assume something went wrong in that particular race. And then you can safely assume the horse needed the June race at Churchill Downs, where, if I may add, this horse was protected from being claimed. Why that is, and why this horse is now running for 1/6 of that claiming price, I don't know. But what I do know is if you draw lines through those 2 races where there are plausible excuses given the timelines, this horse more than fits in this particular spot. I realize you're going back to 2022 here, but I can't play the chalk at this price. I understand Larry Ravelli is supposed to win this race. I understand he wins a lot of races. I see a horse that, in all honesty, was probably supposed to win last time out for 17.5, going a mile on the turf. It's not like she ran bad in that particular race, but now I see a further drop. I see a horse going turf to dirt when there's nothing saying this is a dirt horse. As the great handicapper Harvey Pack always said, never bet a horse as the favorite doing something it's never done before. Lady Helen has never run on the dirt. She's never sprinted. I understand Larry Ravelli usually wins with these horses. If you're playing those multi-race exotics, though, I think this is a favorite you're supposed to try to go against. Josh, I know that that's not necessarily something that you wanted to hear, but I'm against this horse in this spot. If you give me just a moment. Sorry about that, folks. Altitude sickness, very real thing. The horse that I'm also using, though, is horse number 3, Holy Image. This is the only horse that wants to pass others. I think the last 2 starts have both been fine at this level. I think there's an expensive velocity here, and I think there's a chance that Holy Image winds up running late and potentially winning this at a pretty big price, even though that's not something this horse has done in a very long time. This is a horse that is clearly going the right direction based off of the last 2. 3 and 7 for me. Let's beat that chalk.
Yeah, hey, I'm good beating the chalk as long as it's a 7. Race 7 here. We have a mile on the turf, optional claimer, $50,000, and we have a field of 7 with 2 MTOs in here, the 8 and the 9. And your morning line favorite is the 4, Another Mystery. And, Andrew, I'm going to let you go first here. Where did you land?
Well, speaking of Another Mystery, I think it's sort of fitting that you have a big old question mark by Another Mystery. It's almost like you see Another Mystery as a mystery. Waka, waka, waka. Another Mystery makes a lot of sense to me in here. I'm using the horse. If you're playing to win, I think the morning line is a little bit short. This is a horse that if you've been following the longer distance turf races, you've seen in a number of very big spots. Sometimes this horse has run fairly well. Most notably ran 3rd in the Elkhorn back in 2023 at Keeneland. Was a fairly big price that day. Wound up chasing Verstappen and Red Knight. Those are 2 very good horses. Prior to that, ran in the John Connolly over at Sam Houston, which, my God, that used to be a very fun race back when we could actually bet on Sam Houston. Another Mystery's back class could potentially carry this one through, but I didn't think this one was a single. I am also using horse number 3, Savaco, who comes back to Hawthorne and loves, and I mean loves, this surface. That race 2 starts ago, all Savaco did was thump Another Mystery by 3 lengths. And outside of Another Mystery, I think is another contender. That's the 5 leading the charge, who goes second off of a very, very, very long layoff. And I didn't think the return at Horseshoe Indianapolis was all that bad, especially given he'd been away almost 2 years. And in looking at the past performances, it would appear as though, Josh, you and I agree a fair bit here.
Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy. I think how much we agree here. Yeah, Another Mystery. I think if you look at the back class, right, and I got the optics pulled up, you see the big old plus above on the class rating here. Makes a ton of sense, right? I mean, has all the is definitely the classiest horse in this spot. Now, the reason I got a question mark next to it, this spot makes absolutely no sense for this horse. Even more so because, well, won a state bred stakes last time out, right? Why why do they have this one in for a tag?
I can give an answer to that
Okay, what is that?
because nobody's going to pay $75,000 for an 8-year-old gelding.
I don't know.
That's a move that some owners and trainers use a lot. Maggie Moss, in particular, has done that with several older geldings that she's had where they've been able to run for certain conditions because they've been entered for 75, 80, $100,000 tags. Very few connections will spend that kind of money on horses in claiming races. The only major barn I can think of that does that with any regularity is Mike Maker, but I don't know how many horses Mike Maker is claiming over at Hawthorne.
Yeah, I don't know. That just seemed like a weird move here for Chris Block.
If it was 50, I would agree with you. 75 makes it a little bit more understandable for me.
But I looked at that race 2 back with Savaco I mean, absolutely trouncing Another Mystery, and that's where I landed. I think Savaco, I see the 2 Chris Block horses in here. I'm going to take the longer price of the 2. I'm going to take Savaco, who's already gotten the better of Another Mystery. This is a spot I think where I'm tossing Another Mystery. I just don't get the spot here. I feel like this is one that obviously he's got 2 wins at Hawthorne. It has not finished outside of the exacta at Hawthorne. But I think it's one that's done its best running going much further. So I have too many question marks for a horse that's going to be 9 to 5. So I'm with you. I'm going to take the 3 and the 5 here. The 5, I think you basically nailed. Hey, this is a horse that I think was probably running maybe against a little bit better even at Horseshoe Indianapolis last time out, and ran a respectable 4th there. 4th by a length and a quarter, is coming back here. And yeah, I think just looks really good. And when I pulled up the optics plot, is kind of your deep closer in this spot. And so I really like is not your deep closer. That's Another Mystery. But is sitting above the par line, is sitting right there, right at the 2 axes. I think just plots out probably the best out of any horse in this race. So really like the 5, and obviously the 3 is another one who I think is going to get first run before a horse like Another Mystery, and I just don't think that Another Mystery is going to have enough time and enough ground to be able to kind of make up the ground that he's going to need in order to win this race. So I'm 3-5 here. You're 3-4-5. And this is, I think, the first race that we kind of, I guess we both kind of saw it pretty close to the same. So
I mean, we could both still be alive through 3 legs, which is not a small feat considering how much we usually differ in these sequences.
yeah. And race 8, we do have another common horse here. We're going to be going 1 mile and 70 yards here, another $5,000 claimer. And we're on the main track here. The horse we have in common is this 5 horse. Tis a Country Girl, your 6 to 5 favorite. I think of maybe of the favorites that are in, it's probably the one I like the most. I thought was nearly a single for me in this spot. Um, what did you think, Andrew?
A lot of inexpensive velocity here as well. It's a $5,000 claimer. That's usually what you wind up with in races at this level. I'm looking for horses that can rate and pass others. Tis a Country Girl can do that. I need to at least use the horse. Was a near single for me, would be a lone A. However, there's a very deep closer in here that I also used, and you've got to go all the way down to the bottom of the program. That's number 9, Maiden Rock. Just based off of the likely race shape, I need to use this horse. The faster they go early, the better this one's chances figure to be. I thought the race last time out at Canterbury was sort of an eye opener for this one. It's not like they went super fast early on, and Maiden Rock wound up clunking up to run a decent third for 7,500. She comes back to the $5,000 ranks here, and she's going to get a lot of pace to run at her likely price. I needed to use her. This would be a lone A situation with Tis a Country Girl, but there are going to be some tickets I have playing this sequence where the 9 Maiden Rock is on those tickets. And if that one winds up clunking up at a pretty big price, that's going to knock out a lot of tickets, Josh.
Yeah, and looking at the optics plot for this race, obviously you see the big old Q4 square, your deep closer here, the 9 Maiden Rock. Tis a Country Girl sits pretty, in that Q2 area, or Q3 area, which for me sometimes can kind of be no man's land when it comes to this. But you do see a speed rate of 45. You see the flame. So I do think that this is going to be playing for some of the back markers. So I really like your pick of the 9 here. I think the 9 could be kind of sneaky here. Uh, I kind of went a different route here. Obviously, I'm using the 5, Tis a Country Girl. I'm going to be using the 7 horse, Emmett Yaz. And, I do know that we do have a bit of speed in this race. I think there's a chance this could be your speed of the speed and maybe just kind of outlast everybody here. I mean, finished second against better last time out, and is coming back in the dropping back down in class. Obviously finished second at this level, 2 back. So, maybe the class drop's not all that much, but I don't know that last race, even though they finished second, that speed figure, fits in with I think the rest of it. I mean, I got a 74 Briz figure. Tis a Country Girl had an 83 last time out, but that was on the turf. Yeah, it seems like that 74 is very, very, very competitive in here. So I think this might just be your speed of the speed in this spot, or at least the one that kind of, maybe hangs on with the rest of the kind of cheaper speed you see in this spot. But I'm gonna go with the 5, and I'm gonna go with the 7 here.
My notes on the 7 literally are gets dueled into oblivion. And I say that because if you look at the race this horse ran last time out, Josh, she's supposed to win that race. She sets a pretty darn slow pace. She gets beat ahead. I can't see how she gets more comfortable than she got on that particular spot. To me, that's a candy ass trip. Hi, Caleb. How you doing? I want no part of that horse. And if that one beats me, I will tip my cap and I will move on. I think that horse may very well be your leader with about 3/8 of a mile to go. But I think at that point, the warning lights start coming on. I want a horse that's going to come from off the pace, given the likely race shape.
All right, and then race 9, we got a 6 furlong dirt sprint here. Claim a $12,500 claimer here to end this sequence. I went 3 wide here, and we actually have 2 horses in common. Your morning line favorite in here looks to be the 1, Alibi Ike. Mining Camp at 7-2, Easy Fast at 4-1, 9-2 on Tallapoosa, and then 5-1 on Extra Halo, and then you got double digits on everybody else. Yeah, we landed on both the 2 and the 8. which is Extra Halo and Easy Fast. I think Easy Fast, Easy Fast makes a ton of sense if you cross a line through the last two races that are just, I guess, I don't understand. You win well, I guess I understand the turf try or the dirt try, right? You're stretching out, but then you look and you realize that this is a horse sired by violence. You would think that they would have continued to sprint this one on the dirt. They tried stretching it out, didn't work out. For some reason, they tried sprinting on the turf. That didn't work out. They're coming back to the dirt, and I think that the Maiden Breaker is probably one of the better, if not the best race that anybody in this field has run, with the exception of, I think, the two Extra Halo, who does have his Maiden Breaker at Churchill Downs. It was an 86 Briz figure, and I think is actually the highest in the in this field, if I remember correctly. Yes. So yeah, I think that those two horses that we kind of have in common, I think make a ton of sense in here. When I pull up the optics plot, um, we see obviously the 8 as a Q1 square, kind of sits a little bit further back on the standard plot, obviously with the and then you see the 2 is the only horse above the par line. And that I know that tells me that this is the horse that's going to go ahead, is going to get out there on the front end, is got that turn time speed, right? You see this horse, really really high up on the chart, and I think they're going to have to come and get him. I think the 8's got a chance if the 8 goes ahead and tracks. Should have that nice tracking trip here to catch the 2. And the only other horse I used was the 4 horse, Tallapoosa here. And, this is another Larry Ravelli horse. I think you're getting a little bit, better of a price here. You got 9-2. But this is one that's coming off a maiden breaker last time out. This is a very lightly raced horse, and you see some of these other horses that have quite a few more starts in it. So I'm kind of also using the kind of lightly raced horse here, thinking maybe this is one that can take a step forward off that maiden claiming win last time out. And smartly, right, you see the claiming price this time out is lesser than the maiden claimer was for. So I think is going to be in. I don't think this horse is going to be completely outclassed in the spot that sometimes happens with these maiden claimers first time out. So first time against winner. So yeah, I went with the 4 here, and then I used our 2 and 8 that we both have in common.
Sure. We can both hit this. There is a scenario in play where we can both hit this late pick 5. And if that happens, we wind up, I think, cashing for a pretty nice score. The 2 horses we have in common, you mentioned the 2 and the 8. I am against Tallapoosa. They thought something of this horse when they debuted it in Maiden Special Weight Company. This horse was 7-2 that day, did no running. They dropped this horse in to a maiden 15,000 race and got yet another Caleb trademark candy ass trip, sitting just outside of horses, ranging up, winning by 2 lengths in a pretty slow fashion. You see the opening 6 furlongs in 1:12.4. Tallapoosa is going to have to go significantly faster in order to contend in this spot in his first try against winners. Now, that race's 3rd place finisher did come right back to win. That's not nothing. But given the amount that I think Tallapoosa has to improve, I prefer others. I did spread a little bit, though. The only other horses I did not use were the 3 biggest shots on the board, the 5, 6, and 7. I'm 4 deep in here. You mentioned Extra Halo. You mentioned Easy Fast. Alibi Ike is actually my top pick. If you solely look at the dirt sprints that this one's run, you cross out the synthetic races, you cross out the turf races, all of a sudden you have a horse that looks a little bit better. And the last 2 starts have both been solid. Last time out, he rallied late going 5.5 furlongs, which is not an easy thing to do. Wound up running second behind Mahoney Road, who came right back to win it next asking. Goes from a $25,000 tag to a 12.5 tag. That's a significant drop, even though it's the same non-winners of 2 life restriction. You see that kind of drop, it's noteworthy. The rail draw is a little bit of a concern, but I like the fact that this one can pass other horses late. Meanwhile, number 3 Mining Camp ran off the screen last time out at 2-5, winning by more than 8 lengths. Didn't beat anything that day, but looked fairly good doing it. This is another instance where I think you can toss some irrelevant races. You toss the 3-back race where something clearly went wrong. You toss the synthetic races at Turfway, and all of a sudden you're left with a horse that's done some running over the course of his career, and I think may very well be a light bulb play, given how impressively he wound up winning last time out, and the fact that he spent most of his career prior to that running against tougher maiden special weight and higher level maiden claiming fields. I'm 1, 2, 3, and 8 in here to finish off what, if you play caveman style, is a $48 ticket. If Tallapoosa winds up winning, Josh, I hope it completes the late pick 4 for you.
Yep. And there's Andrew's pick 5. He's 1-5 with 3-7, with 3-4-5, with 5-9, with 1-2-3-8. That's a $48 play. And I have a $36 play here. I am 2-5-6 with 5-7, with 3-5, with 5-7, with 2-4-8. It's $36. And hey, if you just want our consensus ticket, I actually have one. It's 5 with 7, with 3-5, with 5, with 2-8. That is a $2 play. You can go ahead and you can probably find that in between the couch cushions if you feel so inclined.
In fact, if your couch cushions are really deep, you can find another $2 and play our consensus late pick 4, starting with the 7.
You hit both carryovers, right?
There you go.
Yeah. But that's going to do it for us. Andrew, where can people catch you this week?
Sure, andrewchampagne.com for my Saratoga stuff, winnersandwiners.com for a whole bunch of different things. I'm going to be back to doing my daily tip sheets for multi-race exotic sheets. Also, going to be doing a lot of coverage with the 2024 Summer Games kicking off later this week. That's going to be a lot of fun. Shout out to Scott Hansen, who will be anchoring Gold Zone coverage over on Peacock. I am irrationally excited for that. That's going to be an absolute blast. It's going to be nice to have a normal feeling Olympics after the last couple of renewals. Of course, the one in Tokyo was severely impacted by COVID, and the one after that in 2022 didn't really feel like an Olympics either. So really looking forward to that. I'm an Olympics guy. I have a Sports Illustrated thing on my desk here commemorating the 2010 games in Vancouver, where I was an intern for NBC. One of the best experiences of my life. So anytime I hear the Olympic anthem, anytime I see the Olympic rings, brings a smile to my face. So that's where I'm going to be for the next couple of weeks. As far as Saratoga stuff goes, though, that doesn't stop until Labor Day. Very much looking forward to that. Hopefully my case of seconditis winds up leaving my body sooner rather than later.
And that's going to do it for us. Obviously, check us out at ontherwronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drank. Andrew is at Andrew Champagne. We will be live on Thursday night. I will be live. And we will see who I get to come on with me. That is still up in the air. But
we're scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point.
Hey, you know what? I think worst case, I might be able to get Mr. Diet Mountain Dew on. So,
wow! Wait a minute, you're getting JD Vance on this show?
Oh my goodness, I hate you so much. We'll catch you guys later.